Welcome to LockdownEconomy, a social nonprofit initiative by think tank AlterContacts to help small businesses and self-employed professionals overcome the challenges of the pandemic and reactivate the economy. My name is Christiana Finnegan. Today, our guest is Robert Finnegan, who also happens to be my dad. Welcome, Robert, to LockdownEconomy.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. What do you do as a business?
I am a independent contractor currently as translator and interpreter.
Okay. How long have you been doing it?
I started as a translator working in Brazil and as an interpreter at the same time in 1991.
Wow, long time ago, even before I was
Yes,
born.
there you go.
Where are you based right now?
Well, after spending almost 30 years in Brazil, having a company there, I was recruited by the UN, went to East Timor, then to Indonesia, and I've been in Sacramento, California for the last 5 years.
Wow, Indonesia, East Timor, and now you're in the US. Sounds like a
Yes.
cool job. Do you
Yeah.
have any employees right now?
Right now, no. I did have employees when I had a company in Brazil.
Okay, self-employed, no employees. Before the pandemic, how many clients or customers did you normally have?
As an independent contractor, I got most of my work through translation and interpretation agencies. Also, a few direct clients, which could be individuals or companies, but mainly through agencies. So I might have up to 20 agencies, and each one would call me for assignments. Could be once a month, could be once a week, could be twice a year. Each one had a different pace, but fitting them all together, and then also with some direct clients, I had enough work to keep me busy and thriving.
Good. How about now, this year, 2020, with the COVID-19 pandemic? How has the business changed for you?
Um, it's changed a lot. It's actually entirely different from this time last year. Two things happened this year. One of them is the pandemic, and another one is legislation that started in January of this year called AB5 in California, which was meant to ensure workers' rights to people in the gig economy, drivers for Lyft, Uber, that kind of thing. But it ended up in getting interpreters and translators in the net as well. And it required any of these agencies that would hire us for assignments to consider us employees with benefits and all of the paperwork that goes along with having an employee. And they weren't willing to do it, most of them. So I stopped getting work from California-based agencies, and most of my work would come from agencies out of state. So that already impacted the business from January to March. And then in March, when the pandemic hit and the lockdown started in different parts of the world, uh, large international events just stopped, cold stopped. All of a sudden, there was nothing, zero. So that had been my bread and butter, either through agencies, mainly in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley companies, when they would have people up from Portuguese speaking countries to buy equipment or find out the latest in their developments. All of that stopped. The State Department, which is on an annual basis the client that provides most of my income, stopped having international visits. So I was no longer going from city to city accompanying these delegations. Everything just stopped completely. So yeah, that
Wow.
was a complete change. That was catastrophic.
Yeah, that sounds like it was. And I think that's true for a lot of people. You would say you travel primarily for work,
Mhm.
and there's no travel going on right now. So, what have you done to stimulate the business and attract customers or new clients?
Well, I have to say the first thing I did was cut on unemployment because if there was no work, everything just stopped cold. I had to keep up some sort of income. So I applied, and thankfully they had that exception for independent contractors where they could uh, receive unemployment. And so until I got a certain flow of clientele back, I depended on that. Now I have been, you asked what I've been doing to get more clients. I have been participating in discussions among trade industry organizations, and some of my clients have also provided webinars and discussions, particularly the State Department, to try to see, understand, and prepare for the new reality.
Yeah, yeah,
So through that,
education.
yeah, through that, I got some clients back, let's say.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. How is your business going now?
It's still much slower than it was, but it the trend is to improve right now.
Yeah, being that we are on the verge of getting a vaccine out, supposedly in some point in December, and probably mass vaccines later next year.
Right.
How do you see the next year, for example? Do you have any customers or new ideas of the future?
I think for the next year, remote interpreting is going to be the norm. I don't think that I'm going to be having lots of traveling delegations coming to the US and requiring my support. I don't think there's going to be large scale in-person events for a while. So that's what I used to do. Now I'm starting to do remote interpretation via Zoom or other platforms. And I'm sure that that's going to be the norm for the next year at least.
Yeah, I
Possibly 2022, things will go back to what they were. I don't know.
we don't know, right? So, and you mentioned a very important point there, which is now translation and events and meetings are being done primarily online via Zoom. How has it changed from how you would interpret before COVID-19 and how you've been doing it this year?
In a simultaneous interpretation has a very high cognitive load. You have to hear, process, and speak at the same time, which is not normal for most people. So that is the norm with my business. But in the past, in in-person events, you have an interpretation booth or booths, and you have a sound engineer or a technician who is monitoring the flow of speech and the levels and everything. And if there's a problem, rushes into the booth or works on his equipment in the back and fixes everything. So now the interpreter by himself or herself has to constantly monitor at least the things that are under his or her control and be aware of those and have to try to resolve them on his own or on her own. So that's a significant difference, and it adds to that cognitive load.
Yeah,
Plus the fact that a lot of the process is no longer in anyone's hands. If your internet provider starts having problems, no one can fix that. Nobody on the interpreter side, none of the participants nor the host.
right.
So all of this adds to cognitive load and to stress.
Wow. It sounds a little challenging, but I hope that with time and more practice, it starts to become a little easier. Because I also believe that it seems like that's going to be the way to go, at least for another year.
Yeah. Well, I think there's some things that we can do about it. You
Okay.
can acquire the best equipment you can. You can acquire the best internet connection you can. So, and you can learn about the platforms and the technology. So those things are things that you can do to help minimize that. There are
Absolutely.
things that you can't do. I mean, eventually we hope that these internet providers will upgrade their infrastructure so that the information flows, the data flows more smoothly, and the platforms improve so that part of the experience is better. So I think there's work on everybody's part.
Yes, a lot of development to happen, and also in different countries, right? How can we
Yeah.
expect for them to have good internet connection in somewhere like Papua New Guinea or in like small islands? So
I had my last remote event was with participants from Brazil, Cabo Verde, Cape Verde, and Guinea-Bissau,
okay.
and São Tomé and Príncipe. São Tomé and Príncipe and Cape Verde are relatively poor countries. Even their capital city looks like a rural community compared to the US, and the US has problems of connectivity in some of its rural areas.
Yeah.
So they were not able to participate with video. They could only
Wow.
participate with audio,
Wow.
because the bandwidth wouldn't allow it. So I think that the world sees that we need more bandwidth and more equity of bandwidth. And I think that that's something that will improve with time. I think that this pandemic has exposed weaknesses all over the social system.
Yes, I agree. To close it off, I have just one more question. What are three things you need help with?
Hmm. One is possibly if there was any kind of incentives for improving your physical infrastructure to be able to provide remote services. A second thing would be, I think, um, more learning opportunities so that people in their different industries can learn how to transition to this new reality. And third, well, this is something in general, but I think that as everyone improves their connectivity and everyone improves their part of the experience, then I think that it'll get better over time. It'll be less stressful for the people running it, and but hopefully we'll also go back to in-person events as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'm hoping for that too. Thank you so much, Robert Finnegan, for participating today. Thank you, everyone who joined us. Feel free to contact Robert Finnegan using the links on the description below. I invite you to like this video and subscribe to our channel. In the coming weeks, we're going to share many insights with you. Stay tuned.